This F-150 Lightning is costing people their jobs. Stellantis CEO made $39.5 million last year. So all these trucks right here, they're all costing people their jobs. See, Stellantis is having to lay off their plant workers because these dealerships are not selling these trucks, and because of that, these dealerships are turning down allocations. And that means production has to get cut. And when that happens, people lose their jobs. Last year, Jim Farley made over $26 million. And Tesla, the darling of the EV market, just laid off thousands and thousands of its workers. And these layoffs are not just hitting the car market, they're hitting the entire economy. So now we're in this vicious cycle. People are broke, they can spend less money at these businesses. Businesses then have to lay off workers. It's absolutely insane to think how these companies miscalculated so much. This whole line is full of Jeep Cherokees. They're stacked up everywhere. So right here, this used to be your family SUV in the Jeep lineup, the Jeep Grand Cherokee. And this one right here is $75,000. And this Grand Cherokee is $80,000. And we know that people are broke right now. Credit card delinquencies are at 10-year highs. Auto loan delinquencies are at 10-year highs. And it seems like these dealerships are doing everything in their power not to move these trucks. And we see why this is happening, right? This whole line of trucks right here, it's some of their base level trucks, and they're $60,000 and $70,000. The average working American can't afford these trucks anymore. The CEO of GM, Mary Barra, is making $27.8 million this year. So a lot of these CEOs, their pay is tied to stock price, to performance of the company. And Mary Barra just got a decrease in her pay of about 4%. And it's because she's not meeting her goals that were set out by the company to sell a lot of these EVs. We know they're not selling. And I wish a lot of these other CEOs would see a similar type of pay decrease like what GM has done for Mary Barra, because if they're not performing, if they're not selling vehicles, they need to make less money. So Stellantis' CEO last year got a pay increase of 56%. So Stellantis reported that vehicle sales were down about 10% from last year, but this is not a surprise to us, right? We've been seeing all these trucks stack up at these dealerships. We're not seeing sales move through the system. People cannot afford to buy these vehicles. And when that happens, they have to lay off people because they're not selling cars. They're not selling cars, they can't make them. Production has to come to a halt because these dealerships, they can't take these trucks anymore. There's too many of them. They're everywhere. All right, and here are the 4xEs. How are those selling for you, Jeep? This is one of the biggest problems right here. This Jeep Wrangler 4xE, it's a 2024 model. It's a little 2.0 liter motor. MSRP is $72,000. After your add-ons, everything that's at this dealership right here is $75,000. This is why things aren't selling. This is why Jeeps aren't selling. This right here is why people are losing their job. Remember when you couldn't find a Wagoneer? Guess what? There's 12 of them sitting right here. That's $1 million in Wagoneers right here on this dealership. So because Jeep is having such a hard time moving vehicles right now, their CEO just came out and said that they're going to be laying off people. They don't know how many yet, but they have said to the public that yes, we are going to be laying off people. And it's not just the plant workers that are getting laid off. You have a lot of the tech jobs that are facing layoffs in this industry also. So they're getting hit from the production side because these dealerships can't take trucks, and the development side is getting hit too because these companies have to prepare to be slower. They know that the car market is a bad place right now and it's getting worse. And this right here is called the Dodge Lot Rot. And I can tell you this dealership right here, they don't need any more Wagoneers. So what does that mean? Production cuts, people getting laid off. Right there, it's sitting all right there. It's layoffs sitting right there. You can see it happening in real life. See, there's a horn going off. They agree with me. So here's the thing about these Dodges right here. Make fun of them a lot. You hear this from Car Edge too, but these are literally the worst selling cars on the market right now. Nobody. I don't know why they can't. They look okay. It's just an advertising thing. I don't know. Let me see how much it is. I mean, compared to everything else that's out here, it's $38,000. It's not terrible. Maybe it's just ugly. That's pretty ugly. It's ugly. That's it. All right, and Stellantis, if you want to pay someone to run your brand into the ground, you know what, you could just pay me a tenth of what you're already paying that dude to do it. All right, so you see this F-150 Lightning right now? This is costing people their jobs. What's happening? Ford cannot sell these things. They're sitting everywhere. They've had to cut production. And because dealers can't sell these things, that means they can't take anymore. If they can't take anymore, Ford has to stop making them. And who's making them? A lot of these laborers in the UAW. So what's happening? Their hours are getting cut. Jobs are getting cut because Ford can't sell them. This is going to be an ongoing theme in the market, that as these dealers stop taking these allocations, production has to get cut and people have to lose their jobs. And when people lose their jobs, what happens to their cars? Well, they show up here at these auctions. All of these behind me, they are repossessed vehicles. And because people have lost their jobs and because they can't make their car payments, we are seeing a massive uptick in repossessions hit these dealer auctions right now. And it's going to get worse. The more layoffs you see, the more repossessions we're going to see, the worse the economy gets. It's happening, and it's happening right now. And I'm seeing it play out right here at these dealer auctions. And it's not like these dealerships are doing anything to help this problem. Check this out right here. See all of this. These are all add-ons on these trucks. So you've got door edge guards, $2.99. You've got door cups, the little things that go inside of here to protect from scratches. Those are $2.99. You've got infotainment protection, $1.99. You've got window tint, $4.99. Nitrogen, $1.99. I hate nitrogen. You have low jack for $14.95. Wheel locks, $149. Running boards, $8.99. Spray in liner, $6.99, to bring you to a total of $4,737 on top of the already inflated truck price. This is what I'm talking about. When you have dealerships that are adding on all of these extras, they are not helping getting these trucks moved. All right, so what we are seeing from the manufacturer side are all these vehicles right here. These vehicles are actually keeping jobs for a lot of the plant workers, because what we're seeing is that fleet sales are still up. We're seeing retail sales are down, but fleet sales are still strong. But that can only last for so long, because after all these companies reload their fleets, because, I mean, there was a big production gap over the last 3 years, and these fleet companies, they couldn't reorder because the vehicles just weren't there. But now they're going full bore as far as ordering and getting these fleet vehicles delivered. So that is keeping these manufacturers basically afloat at this moment. But as soon as all these fleet customers to get filled up on their inventory, it's going to be a few years before they're going to have to reload their fleets again. And all those fleet sales are going to go away in the near future. And at that point, you're going to see more production halts. You're going to see more layoffs. Fleets are good for now, but that's only a short-term thing. And Tesla just cut about 14,000 jobs. This equates to about 10% of their workforce. Stock market did not like this. And I know all you Tesla bulls out there are saying, you know what, Elon just does this every once in a while. This is good for the company. It's cutting their costs. But I'll tell you what, if they're delivering tons of vehicles, if their business is growing at a rapid pace, they're not looking to cut costs. They're not looking to cut their workforce. They need them to put together these vehicles. They need them to get deliveries out to consumers. And we've already seen, we've seen it in their last quarter, their deliveries are down. This is hitting the EV market, and specifically Tesla too. And it was actually reported that Elon didn't want to cut 10% of the workforce. He wanted to cut 20% of the workforce. And Rivian, another EV company, they just went through their second round of layoffs this year. They cut 10% of their workforce back in February, and they did another 1% cut. It's hitting all of these companies. And Tesla's not immune to all of these problems that we're seeing in the car market. You can just look at their stock price over the last year. It's gotten absolutely hammered. And it's not just a Tesla-specific problem. Yes, the company is having some issues getting deliveries, but it's more of an economy problem. It's more of a people being broke problem. I think they can move a lot more vehicles. They could deliver a lot more vehicles if consumers had the money to buy them. And what we're seeing from Tesla, what we're seeing from all these manufacturers, they're having a harder time selling these vehicles because people just don't have money. Oh yeah, and Tesla just laid off another 500 workers. These workers were directly connected to their supercharger network. So now when these dealerships are not moving vehicles, it's affecting other small businesses like myself. See, I'm a small used car dealer, and what happens is when these dealerships don't move these trucks, then they're not getting trade-ins, and that means trade-ins are not going to the auctions that I buy at. And if we can't get vehicles there at these auctions, the prices for used vehicles is very, very high. So we're at a time right now where it's hard for the consumer to buy cars. Used cars, because there's a lack of inventory, are still very high. So there's fewer vehicles that I can buy to move. And I know that there have been buddies of mine that have closed up shop in the last couple years because inventory was just so hard to come by. And the inventory that they had to buy, they had to sell it for so high that consumers could not afford to buy it. So because these dealerships are not selling their vehicles, they are affecting small businesses just like mine. They are making small businesses close down just like mine. People are losing their jobs because of this. So I try not to get too far off of the general car market in these videos, but I have to talk about this just a little bit because I think it affects the broader economy. So California just raised the minimum wage of their fast food companies to $20. What does this do for the broader economy, especially in California? Well, those companies, those fast food restaurants, they have to either do one of two things. They either have to lay off their employees because it's going to cost them way more to operate, or they have to raise their prices. And most likely, a lot of them are going to do both. So what this does to the consumer is that people are getting laid off and things are costing more on top of that. The consumer is getting hit. The average worker right now is getting hit from both places. And it's just not the car market right now that's getting hit. It's the housing market too. And I've heard Josh Brown from CNBC say one time that housing contributes to about 18 cents of every dollar that is spent in the US. So we just saw that Whirlpool, they laid off 1,000 workers. So Whirlpool, they're going to make refrigerators, dishwashers, a lot of your appliances that are going to go into housing. So we're seeing that in each one of these sectors as sales go down. And they cited that because house sales were starting to slow, that a lot of their sales were falling off, and now they have to do layoffs. We're going to see this across all of these sectors in the market, that as sales slow, as people have less money, as more people get laid off, more layoffs. It's such a big domino effect. Less sales equals more layoffs, equals less money for people, equals less sales, equals, this is the whole cycle. It's vicious. It's terrible. So now we have the UAW that's blasting Stellantis for laying off workers at plants. But you know what? We just had this massive contract that was signed where a lot of these UAW members got big time increases in their pay. And this increase in pay is at the worst possible time for these manufacturers because we're seeing that we've already passed the peak of sales for these manufacturers. So now they're increasing what they have to pay to manufacture these vehicles, and now sales are going down. So yes, layoffs will happen during these times, and it's going to be a lot of these UAW members that get laid off because they're getting paid more. And I'm not anti-union by any stretch. Don't take these comments as me saying that I am anti-union. But what I do want to bring up is during the last three and a half years when sales were booming, this was the time that these union contracts needed to be renegotiated and a new contract needed to be hit when these manufacturers were pumping out so much money. So now what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think that sales are going to continue to fall for these manufacturers. I think dealerships are turning down allocations right now, and that's going to continue to hurt these manufacturers. So I do believe in the near future, we're going to see more and more production cuts, and that's going to contribute to a lot more layoffs. I don't think the economy is getting any better anytime soon. On top of that, I don't think the Fed are going to lower rates anytime soon either. Their motto has been higher for longer, and I think they're going to stay pat to that. So what that means is that means housing is going to continue to fall down. It means that the car market is going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. And what that's going to mean is that means that all this production's got to come to a halt. And at that point, all of these jobs are in jeopardy. More layoffs to come. That is my prediction. That production has to come to, no. And that means production has to get slow. No. So now we're in this vicious cycle. Big truck. Workers that are getting laid off in these manufacturing companies, in these economy, it becomes just a visual. And Tesla just cut about 14,000 workers from its